The planets have aligned, and once again, the prophecy has come true. That's right, folks. It's time for another episode of the Roundtable Rethink Podcast with me, your trusty host, Uncle Paddy, joined every week by twin brother and spare parts bin, Andy, the asshole.
Woo, come on.
And he is back with his new and improved bionic hand. That's right, the sage himself, Stevie Tel Avivi.
Just call me Frankenhand.
Or the Claude. This week, we'll be going all the way back to the beginning, back to episode 1. So if everybody remembers, we did our prediction show as the very first episode of the Roundtable Rethink podcast. And this week, we'll be reviewing our predictions for 2025, and we will be grading each of those predictions. How did we do at trying to predict the future 12 months ahead of time? But before we do any of that, we'll start the podcast the way that we always start. Boys, how's the week been?
It's been an interesting one. Bit of teaching, bit of other stuff. One I'll come back to. I think I've been crypto hacked. That's going to be an interesting one. I think
I've almost certainly been crypto hacked.
I think I've almost certainly been crypto hacked. So I need to find out how they did it, why they did it, what did I do wrong? Why was it my fault? That's an interesting one. Other than that, just looking forward to holiday time.
Skiing trip.
Starting to get ready for some breaks over the holidays.
Lovely.
Well, we thought we were going to have a nice gentle run into Christmas. It's generally a quieter time of year for us in terms of taking new bookings in, but we've got a lot of big investments we need to make next year in the business. So there's trying to hire people, trying to subcontract work away, get work off my desk. So it's actually a bit of a kind of grind towards, in December towards Christmas for me anyway. So nothing particularly exciting to report, just very busy at work.
Very good. Well, for me, it's been a pretty quiet week.
Of boiler problems.
and super luxury floating chairs.
But a very interesting AI. So I won't bore everybody to death on the podcast with my boiler problems, but my fucking boiler's taken over my entire life. So it loses pressure, sometimes over 24 hours, sometimes over 3 weeks, sometimes over 3 days. So just constantly losing pressure, goes to zero. Worcester Bosch have been out 3 times. Never really get to the bottom yet. And then I wake up in the places like Substation Alpha or Substation Zero.
Yeah.
And that's when I know the heat's screwed again. So, and it's just the wrong time of year for it, right? I've got all these like fucking terrible visions of sitting on Christmas Day, huddled around a candle. So anyway, in anticipation of the Worcester Bosch's visit today, the engineer's visit today, I spent last night going back and forth with Claude. And I uploaded all the previous engineers' reports from the last 3 visits. Mm-hmm. I described as best I could all the things and the conditions that were going wrong. And Claude correctly predicted that the heat exchanger had failed inside the boiler. And when Worcester Bosch came out the day, they agreed and replaced the heat exchanger, which is a £600 part.
There we go.
So there you go.
So once
AI is now your local heating engineer.
So once Claude's brain is in a Tesla Optimus bot, you'll be able to save yourself £100 on a boiler call. You actually won't. You'll just pay it to the robot.
So that's
instead.
how we go from my mundane, boring domestic problems in a tedious segue back to AI.
Everything gets back to AI.
All righty then. So at the very beginning of the year, we came up with 5 predictions for the year.
Was there no 6 questions here?
No, because
there's one of winners and losers.
Biggest political winners and losers I'm including as one question. Okay. So we're going to state the questions, and then we'll just go around the table here and we will
give our predictions and a wee bit of context.
Ourselves with everybody's answers.
Yeah.
And then we'll argue amongst ourselves about whether we did a good job of predicting the future or whether we screwed it up. Okay. So the first question that we posed to ourselves back in January was, which industries will see the greatest shift in workplace requirements due to AI in 2025? So Andy and Stephen, you both came up with pretty much the same answer, which was autonomous driving. Okay. And you predicted the rise of autonomous driving, massive growth in autonomous driving. when I re-listened to the episode this morning, you never predicted the mainstreamness of autonomous driving. So to that extent, I still feel pretty good about your prediction. But Andy, why don't you open us up with some commentary?
I think Stephen, I think your prediction was a more broad prediction round about the advent of autonomous driving. Mine was more specifically referring to ride-hailing, and in particular, this type of ride-hailing which Waymo and Tesla now represent most prominently.
Which we covered extensively on the podcast last week.
We covered extensively last week, which is these kind of robo-taxi services. And my prediction, so I think, well, let me just say what my prediction was. My prediction was that there would be a huge collapse in demand for entry-level driving positions, and that there would be an increasing demand exponentially throughout the course of the year for these kind of this supervisory stroke safety layer. So I think directionally I got the prediction right. In terms of the detail, we haven't yet seen the collapse in demand for entry-level drivers. So a bit of a fail on that one, although I do believe solidly that's in the post. I think I've just been a bit early on that. But just to give you an extent, so just to give you a bit of a picture, and we covered it last week, so I don't want to just rehash it too much.
Yeah, but we've got some new numbers to share.
But we've got some new numbers. So just 2 hours ago, it dropped on CNBC that Waymo, one single company alone, has crossed the threshold of 450,000 paid autonomous rides every week. And that's up over 300% from the numbers.
It's actually 500%.
500% from the numbers. Was that from January?
January, February this year. Yeah.
Although, again, we were talking this before, I'd still love to see the financials and all, what the actual return on investment.
Yeah.
And of course, scale will bring return on investment eventually, but be still early days, see what the actual numbers are.
And don't forget what the scale looks like for this. It's tens of billions, hundreds of billions of rides.
Yeah.
So they're only scratching the surface of what's available in the marketplace.
And think about where
my guess is Waymo's a massive loss generating business. I mean,
so think
about the P&L of Waymo, it'd be a disaster.
Think about where they are at the moment. If they don't grow from here at all, which of course they are, and very, very quickly, they'll serve 23.5 million autonomous rides in the next 12 months. But of course, it'll probably be more like 30,000+. And
they're still only out of, what, half a dozen cities?
Whoa, what do you mean there? They'll serve 23,000 million.
They'll serve 23.5 million rides if they don't grow from that 450,000 weekly run rate at the moment in the next 12 months.
Where did the 30,000 come into?
But it's probably going to be more like 30 million plus rides in the next 12 months because of the continuing growth rate. And then if you take into that picture, so one of the reasons I was so bullish on that prediction in January is because Tesla had already announced the launch of the robo-taxi service. Committed to the product, but they were just waiting on regulatory approval. And the thing that slowed them down more than anything was just getting the go-ahead from the government to start the rollout in Austin. So that came many months longer than we thought it was. That took many months longer than we thought it was going to. But we all know in the last few months they've got it. And they're rolling out their product very, very quickly with, like Waymo, safety drivers behind the wheel. So I still think long term, the safety driver will come away, maybe move to a call center, maybe come out the vehicle altogether.
The
in terms of Tesla.
The safety driver leaves the vehicle in Tesla at the end of this month.
Right, so they're pulling out. So you have so far seen a lot of hiring of this kind of supervisory stroke safety layer, but we haven't yet seen the collapse in demand for entry level drivers. So I don't know how you would grade that overall. 6 out of 10.
I think there's a few things I'll just quickly add to that one. I think what we've seen is, I think the biggest job losses have been in the companies that have failed. Yeah. So there's been a couple of massive job losses for companies that haven't gone through. There's been, as we're going to talk about in a couple of these, I suspect, the evolution from people in taxis to people managing taxis. So we see the creation of a new job structure.
Yeah.
And like a lot of things in life, we've kind of shot a little too early in that we're seeing the beginning of a trend which is only going to go one way. And that's what I was saying before. I don't know what the total number is, but we are only in 6 or 7 cities, as far as I'm aware, in the States at the moment.
In the US, yeah.
In the US.
Yeah.
So, take that out. We have got thousands upon thousands of % of growth curve to go across 2 companies alone. So No doubt it's coming. It's just...
And there's so many other people involved in this, by the way. I don't know if you know, but Rimac, the Matty Rimac now, the guy who runs Bugatti, created his own company, Rimac, built the fastest car ever produced. Does 270 mile an hour or something like that. It's a road legal car, fully electric. They've just launched a fleet of autonomous taxis built on the tech stack from the Israeli company Mobileye, and they're deploying them in Germany. So for every Tesla and Waymo that you know about, there's 100 other companies pursuing this idea in small scale, tests, but scaling up regardless. So yeah, and it'll be fascinating to know where we think this is going to head in 26. So I would say directionally we nailed the trend. We absolutely saw in January that there will be an explosion in the amount of miles covered by full self-driving systems. And you know the crazy thing? I think if you stop somebody in the street today and you talk to them about self-driving, they would still think it was a future state thing that was coming down the line. They wouldn't realise that it happened 11 million times last year. Yeah. And so it's amazing how, despite the fact that, that should be the number one fucking news story on every news channel in the world.
Self-driving's here.
But nobody knows. So the technology's there. We're now dealing slowly but surely with the regulatory hurdles. We're jumping through all the hoops for the regulators. Be fascinating to see where we think
can I just put a pin in that by saying the empire is striking back? Just look at the UK government. They added VAT to ride-hailing services. So the only thing that disheartens me a wee bit about this is I think any cost savings or any of these super deflationary aspects that go along with self-driving will just be squared away with taxation back up to the median.
As go electric cars.
Yeah. We're always going to see what we always see, which is there will be moving towards a winner takes all. There will be a consolidation of the market, and there will be someone that will basically take the strap on the huge oxygen tank until everyone else in the swimming pool drowns. And then you'll be left with Waymo or Tesla or whoever else who's going to take the vast majority then of what will be a worldwide
phenomenon. Yeah, 100%. Okay.
And then, Stephen, you had a thing about law. It was a general thing. It was more about law will not go in. I don't think anybody disputes that. It was just like other parts of law that will be meaningfully disrupted by AI. It's not showed up yet in terms of job displacement, although we can all point to individualized services like Harvey and others.
And you did say that law would be a slow adopter.
I think a slow adopter. But
has that played out this year?
Yeah, absolutely. You're seeing a lot of legal-based AI. You're seeing again, remember, legal profession is split roughly a third work in-house, a third work for big firms, and a third work for small high street firms.
Okay.
Small high street firms, some really clever ones, but not great capital necessarily at that scale to put forward. Some of the big firms are doing a lot of in-house AI. And some interesting products in that market. In-house is obviously can be your banks and your institutions. So you are seeing it, and you are seeing the efficiencies coming out. Whether anyone's going to burst the legal model, that's going to be interesting over the next couple of years.
And more importantly, there's been no real obvious workforce changes due to it. Yeah. Okay.
Now, mine's is a different prediction. So in the same question, I predicted the elimination of the customer service roles. I think I have nailed that prediction, and I've got the receipts for that. So at the time when I gave that prediction, Klarna had just released its
700
earth-shattering statement that had replaced actually turned out to be 830 full-time agents with a new chatbot. It had similar NPS scores, and it was predicted to add $40 million to their EBITDA over the course of the year. So I did some deep dive earlier on how AI had impacted that customer service business, what the job displacement has been. So I can tell you that customer service roles in the contact center space are down 30% in 1 year. Okay? And there's been 80 to 100,000 direct jobs lost in customer service just in the tech sector alone. That's before you go to retail, before you go to all the big employers. So I think we can with confidence say that prediction did come true. and that customer service has been meaningfully displaced, and the job displacement in that part.
100%. And can I just give you the most perfect example, which happened at 3:00 this afternoon, which would have seemed like science fiction in January? We are evaluating new CRMs and back-end systems right now. And I was on a company's website, and we have a relatively complicated kind of setup and, you know, automations that fire off the website and all that stuff. Something that I would have physically spoken to a sales engineer or a customer support person, I spoke to a video avatar connected to a model, and it was able to answer some incredibly detailed technical questions in that two-way conversation. And it was obviously an AI avatar female that I was speaking to, connected to a kind of chatbot AI brain. Something that would have seemed like science fiction in January.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was actually a great interaction. I got all the information needed, but some poor human would have not ordinarily done that job in the customer support.
And
or
I know the
sales
questions you were
engineer.
asking, right?
Yeah.
They were very complex. It wasn't, oh, does this CRM track leads? Yeah, of course it does. Every fucking CRM tracks leads.
Yeah.
It was specific stuff about API endpoints that were available to enable certain integrations and workflows inside your business, and it nailed all the answers. That is pretty special.
Yeah.
My question is, how many, so are we seeing complete job losses? Are we simply seeing a cut in new staff being taken on? Are we seeing jobs being redesigned? So again, that's the bits I was looking at earlier on, that we're not seeing a mass job layoffs as yet. There's certainly massive freeze on hiring. There's a lot of people being redesigned as chat supervisors. So it's
Well, what was the actual, how was the question worded again, Paddy? So was it more about workplace shifts or something like that? Just how was the actual?
It was the shift in workplace requirements.
Yeah, the shift in workplace requirements. So it wasn't necessarily a...
So a third of all customer service roles in the contact center have now been displaced or reassigned. They've been eliminated.
Okay.
That's an enormous shift. That's
But the truth is, all three of those things are happening that you mentioned there simultaneously. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you nailed that one, bro.
So that wraps up question one.
Woo! Question one in the can.
And now we move to question two. So question two was, what emerging technologies will have the biggest impact on daily life in 2025? Stephen, let's start with you.
Synthetic biologies is what I've mentioned, and I think that they have probably had an incredible effect this year. We talked a little bit about GLP-1 and all the weight loss drugs. Something like, I can't remember the exact number, was 30 to 40% of all people in the US on diabetes is now on GLP-1s.
Yeah.
Weight loss is up by 10 to 15% with all of the ongoing things for joint and hip replacements, those kind of things. We are seeing the the CRISPR technologies giving us our first ever sickle cell cure. So really...
So from those predictions, what ones are still in the lab and which ones are actually making a difference in everyday life?
These are all on making differences now.
So you nailed the
GLP-1 is a definite,
It's up. So I got the numbers on it.
Yep.
GLP-1 market expanded 57% this year.
Yeah.
It's up 57% and it was already $100 billion plus market. So you've seen an explosion in GLP-1 growth.
And we're seeing, I mean, the first CRISPR-based treatment for sickle cell diseases is actually being beta thalassemia in clinical use now.
Right,
so we're seeing real life use of
application of the technology. Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but in January, I didn't know what GLP-1 really was. And now I know dozens of people that are on Manjaro every day.
Yeah. The other thing is, I mean, synthetic.
Whether that's a good thing or not is a different thing.
We're not saying whether it's good or bad, but we're saying that it showed up in everyday life in a powerful way.
But we're also seeing it being used in food productions, synthetic biology-based products from engineered microbes to alternative proteins being used in food. About $20 billion in US dollars in 2024, up about 25%. Alternative proteins. So it's in almost every sector of our lives, synthetic biology is having an impact. It's a bit like you said, if you ask most people how much of your food is made from a synthetic biology, they would go, none.
Yeah.
But actually it's being used regularly and safely.
Yeah, 100%. That's why we've all got
100%.
fucking turbo cancer. Anyway. Mate, high five, you're good, hand. That's a good prediction.
Stephen
you absolutely nailed that one. Woo! Come on.
My big prediction for that question, what emerging technologies will have the biggest impact on daily life in 2025, was health tech. So I talked about blood pressure monitoring. I talked about people self-serving their own health updates, using AI companions to try and diagnose their own problems. I don't feel 100% great about this. If I wanted to find data to support my claim, I would tell you that the wearables market grew 10% globally, and that in January I predicted the Apple Watch would launch blood pressure monitoring, and in September 2025 the Apple Ultra Watch 3 introduced hypertension notifications, effectively blood pressure monitoring. So I don't think it would have the biggest impact on daily life. So if I took the question at face value, is it a technology that will have the biggest impact on daily life in 2025? Don't feel, although it certainly grew and it became more important and it became more sophisticated as a market globally, and the technologies all advanced considerably, don't think it's really had
I think you're being unfair on yourself. I was looking at something that says in US health system, using AI enhanced platforms report up to 70% reduction in 30-day hospital readmissions, and about 38% lower cost of care. So actually they're using remote technologies
what I would
to
say,
save doctors.
What I would say is most of the devices that were out in January have iteratively still here. They've just moved forward a generation or two. And it's still most of the apps that people are using that they were using in January, but those apps have just been imbued with new AI-enabled capabilities. But it's more like an iteration on the original product as opposed to anything new.
And again, it's only anecdotal, but I know many people in my life that now monitor their heart rate variability,
HRV,
blood pressure monitoring. My dad now has a thing that he puts both his fingers on. It's like a metal bar, and it accurately...
Bad news, Pat, you're still alive.
At a medical level, measures his AFib.
Right.
You know, I could never have predicted that 3 years ago, that my dad would now be measuring AFib using health tech and wearables. So I don't know, maybe I'm being hard on myself, but it's definitely a trend. It's definitely becoming more and more a part of people's daily life, is to manage and monitor these things, and it's becoming more accessible as the price point of these things collapses.
I think also when you think about the UK, for example, we have a failing but wonderful national health system. So anything that keeps people at home, doctors able to monitor them, less necessary trips in, I think you'll just see it growing and growing and growing. So it's still one of the ones that I would be watching, and I think there's a lot of things yet to be done.
For sure. Andy, your prediction, and there was nuance in it. So part of it was obvious, the other part was nuanced. You said 2025, the technology that will have the biggest impact on daily life was the AI becomes practically useful for ordinary people, and agentic capabilities would rise. So people would go from not even knowing what ChatGPT was to using ChatGPT, and then using ChatGPT to do things. I think
I've absolutely aced this one. I think how AI agents, particularly in enterprise, like there's very few people that are getting through their working day now without interacting with some kind of agentic capability as part of their daily workflow, whether that's a custom GPT that they've built, which again, I don't think custom GPTs were a thing in January, were they? That was,
and your granny now knows what ChatGPT is.
And your granny now knows what ChatGPT is.
I just had some examples here. Nano Banana is an agentic capability, is something that...
Grok Imagine... So all your kids are sending
Claude code, cursor. Yeah. So it turns out the agents or the AI brains themselves, when wrapped in the right harness to create these agentic capabilities, that's where the true value is. So, you know, Claude is a great model, but wrapped inside the harness of Cursor, the coding tool, it becomes can't live without. The image generation models are great, but wrapped in the harness of Nano Banana with all its capabilities and guardrails, just to...
And the advent and explosion of super agents that sit on top of the core capability of these models and are able to produce slide decks and images and videos and all that type of stuff. So I think absolutely fucking nailed that one. Anstradamus in the house.
Google Notebook LM is maybe the best example of this, right? So that's a tool that we were early in on back in January, February this time year. You could hook it up to sources of information and then you could query just those sources. It's then evolved for that to grow these arms, hair, legs and teeth and all these agentic capabilities where now from the sources you hooked it up to, you can now automatically create a slide deck out of those sources, automatically create imagery out of automatically create a video telling the story of what's in all those sources.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a tool that started as just a chatbot and then grew all these agentic capabilities and became fabulously more useful and compelling.
The only thing I'm going to say, and I agree with all of that, and I think it's a fabulous prediction, I'm wondering if, you know, that way that we all have this idea of what the future is meant to look like, and that idea of being able to go on literally, and we've played about with it here, that ability to go off and book me is here, but it's still slow, it's still clunky. I don't think the public are yet getting quite what they imagined the future to be. Now that's only weeks, months, or a short time away, but that kind of everyone just using the internet to book stuff isn't quite here yet.
I would agree with that.
But AI went mainstream this year. It went from being, in January when we sat down and did this podcast, it was power users, it was enthusiasts, it was guys who wanted to
tech
be
nerds only.
And now everybody's reaching for ChatGPT and Gemini to solve almost every problem.
Except the law schools.
Including my wife.
Yes.
Oh, let me tell you about that story. So my son is 16, he's still at school, but he's looking for a little weekend job, so he's been applying in a whole bunch of retailers. He got a message back from Greg's telling him to take out, because I built his CV for him. It's a 1 or 2 pager. We did the best with the limited experience he's got. And one of the things I thought would be really compelling is, and even at 16, he's got a good command of AI and knows how to use it to help benefit companies. The feedback from Greg was to take that out of his CV.
What the actual...
Now, I'm not done with that, by the way. I'm going to fucking town on that one. I'm going to go spare on that. This only came to my attention on Friday. I've still to hunt that one down.
Maybe it doesn't need... Maybe it doesn't need AI to work the cheese and onion slurry machine that they put into the pasties.
But you know, this still this insane level of resistance that we're seeing. And do you know what happened? It was somebody in Greg's HR department that doesn't even know what they're looking at. They've just been trained that AI equals bad. Yeah. And they saw a mention of AI. Yeah. They probably confused what he was trying to say with fucking using AI to build his CV. Yeah. And sent him that message. And so, fuck me gently. Yeah, this whole crazy thing that's going on in government and schools and in business and in retail. This anti-AI sentiment is an absurdity.
The good news is for future episodes of the pod, Paddy will now refer to that as Rant 103.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, anyhow, nailed that one. Okay, we're moving on to question 3. So the biggest winners and losers in tech in 2025, company names and why. So, did I fucking nail this? So let's start with my winners. So I predicted my winner is SpaceX, okay, would be the biggest winners of 2025. Let me tell you about SpaceX's year. SpaceX are going to record, because they're a private company, they're not compelled to publish their results, but it's rumoured and the insiders are predicting somewhere between $16 to $20 billion worth of revenue, okay? Now, here's the really interesting part of that. With only $1 billion coming from NASA. So people think that SpaceX is a NASA surrogate, almost entirely funded by NASA. NASA is less than 5%. NASA contracts are less than 5% of SpaceX's total revenue. So where does SpaceX's revenue come from?
Dr. Evil.
It comes from Starlink.
Yes.
Starlink is the largest contributor to SpaceX's revenue, somewhere between $8 to $10 billion a year.
Starlink customer here in the house.
Starlink is a subsidiary of SpaceX. Starlink doubled its subscriber count in 2025 to 8.5 million paying subs.
Picking up one very important new customer in Fennec.
This month, SpaceX started a secondary share sale that would value the business at $800 billion, After allowing employees to sell their shares in 24 for $400 billion, they've doubled their valuation in a year.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine anybody who's done better than SpaceX.
And that's before Starship
And they
really
think in
gets
26 it could be a multi-trillion IPO.
And Starship could transform the economics of each one of those launches just by getting so much more payload to orbit for less money.
Again, because it's not public, I just love to know what the ROI is on Starlink. You know, there's you've got all of those users. What did it cost to put them up there? What's the net return? But it's like building cable. Eventually, when it's up there, it nets out.
Big upfront capital cost, but then you amortize it and monetize it over time. Yeah.
So that was my winner, and I feel good about that. The loser, which I also feel good about, was the legacy auto industry. Okay. So Stellantis is on the verge of bankruptcy. Stellantis is one of the biggest automotive makers in the world. They own, and again, we talked about this maybe 3 episodes ago when we broke down the demise of the legacy car makers. Stellantis own a dozen plus brands, you know, GMC, Ram, Citroen, fucking Fiat, Alfa Romeo, you name it, Stellantis own it.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
Stellantis are teetering on the verge of bankruptcy. VW, all the legacy car makers had a horrendous year, on the back of a horrendous year. Their electric models are not taking off. There's no demand. Almost none of them can now make a compelling electric vehicle. And the streets and the roads are now full of Chinese hybrids and EVs. We've seen the rise of BYD. Every street in the fucking country now has a BYD parked on it. JQ just descended on the country like a hive of locusts. There's now a JQ7 on every street. MG, which is now actually a Chinese brand, and you've got all these challenger brands moving into the country. So we've seen a massive swing from legacy automakers now to Chinese derivatives, mainly BYD and JQ and Omoda here in the UK.
Yeah.
So I feel really good about that one as well.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue with that. Stephen, do you want to go next on your prediction?
My prediction was, I think, more kind of general industry wise, but I think it was across drones.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I hate to say it's done incredibly well.
Yeah.
It's maybe an obvious one in hindsight, but strong market, something like $40 to $45 billion, and it's growing at 20+% a year.
Yeah.
And we're now seeing, particularly unfortunately as a result of Ukraine, the kind of the acceleration in technology that only war brings. So you're getting drones, which are then becoming wire-guided drones, then being met by drone fences, which are being met by drones with cutters in the front, which are then being met by drones which have aircraft missile launchers on them, which will be met by hunter-killer drones.
Gliding drones.
It's the drone wars.
It's that unfortunate acceleration of attack and defence, and it's been driven not just by Ukraine and Russia, but of course by the rest of the world looking to create their own defence systems for whatever might happen in the future.
Yeah.
So I think almost across the sector, anyone that's building drones at the moment is doing well. And
if you extrapolate out drones to just autonomous vehicles, so like Anduril, for example, have built their own wee kind of F-35 kind of autonomous fighter jet thing.
Yeah.
Flying itself, landing itself, no pilot behind the wheel. And you can say that across all domain ships, tanks, and soon to be robots.
No, I think you nailed it, Stephen. I'd pulled one example. So a company called AeroVironment, AVAV, standout performer in the space. So their revenue's up 140% year over year, and stock price up 131% since October.
But how could we in Scotland not pass this without referring to the Dubai-based company Jobby Aviation?
Joby. Flying cars or something?
Flying cars, yeah. So again, just another variation on drones, etc. So yeah, it's coming.
So 2 absolute knock them out the park winners there, and now we go to Andy's unbelievable fail. So Andy, your prediction was that the biggest losers...
No, the biggest winner in tech would be NVIDIA.
I know. But then we get to the losers.
So what we're doing first, we were on winners there.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did winners and losers, so...
Yeah, so let's stay on winners just now. So I predicted that NVIDIA would be
the cat who lies at the bottom of the fucking driveway could have predicted
And that's
NVIDIA
exactly
would be the biggest winner.
And if you
Don't you love two twins?
if you
on a
recap the
podcast?
episode, that is one thing. Now, what we couldn't have predicted is that not only would they be the obvious winner, but just how ridiculous they would win in
I think we
2025.
could have predicted that so easily.
So you thought they'd have been in January?
It was so clear in January.
So
that
in
NVIDIA
January, when they were doing $1 trillion, you thought they were going to be a $5 trillion company in 11 months. Did you fuck?
Let's refer to that as rant 137.
Yeah. No, nobody could. There's never been anywhere near a $5 trillion company. So it's been a meteoric rise. Again, a very predictable one. I absolutely accept that. But, and again, still to this day, limited only by their ability to produce GPUs, production really ramping up, which has obviously catapulted their revenue forward and created this ridiculous market cap of, I think today, $4.7 trillion. And I think they were just over one and a bit when we made that prediction in January. So quite predictable, but NVIDIA was my winner.
I think just to stop that one, just before what's interesting in NVIDIA is also, it does sit on a slightly wobbly peg at the moment. I think there's a lot of stuff. We just saw the announcement this week of Google's chips being bought for the first time by Meta.
Yeah, and Anthropic.
And Anthropic.
TPUs,
So maybe we're seeing the potential bubble, some question marks about this cross buying. So I think it's been a phenomenal year. It'll be a very interesting one when we talk about it later on.
Yeah.
Whether you'd still put your money in NVIDIA for 12 months' time.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, I wouldn't. But so got that one right. And then moving on to biggest tech losers. I flunked this one so fucking hard it's a joke, because I said that the biggest losers in tech in 2025 would be the big defense primes that make up the legacy defense contract base industrial complex. So guys like Lockheed Martin, guys like Raytheon, all up and to the right this year. I think there's a couple of things that feed into this that I was blindsided by. Number one, we had no idea that Trump was going to bully NATO into this 5% defense spending increase. And what that's done is a lot of that has been directed specifically towards Lockheed Martin. So he's bullied in all, not just the American government, but all the American allies have been bullied into upping their orders for F-35s. And Lockheed Martin build the F-35. And so they've had 12
endless wars around the world.
Endless wars, $12 billion or over $12 billion worth of commit just on the F-35 program alone. Now, Lockheed Martin's stock price is down 6% this year, but its general fiscal performance is very, very good. And so that was a huge fail, as was Raytheon and the rest. But what I did mention at the time was I thought that they would naturally wind down as they move to better value options. Remember, one of the things that was feeding into this prediction was the advent of Doge at the time. Mm-hmm. And I thought that Doge would have identified very, very quickly that there was smarter, weapon systems at lower cost that the money could get deployed into, and that would hurt the big defense primes. And on that particular prediction, I was 100% wrong. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. The next one up was, who was the biggest political winners in 2025? Stephen, let's start with you.
If I'm correct in what I suggested, and again, I'll make the usual caveat that I like to make every time on this one. We're talking political. I don't like him. I don't agree with him. But Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And I think looking back on the year, I'll say what I always say. You may disagree with the way he's done a lot of things, but many of the things he's done by way of his big budget, the glorious big budget,
the big beautiful bill,
thank you. With
the big glorious budget,
largely forced, but ultimately he managed to get some form of resolution in the short term, or hopefully in the longer term, in Israel, Gaza. And a number of other victories. Many failures amongst that. We'll talk about them when we come to the loser section. But I think I said Donald Trump, and I'm going to hold out. I think I nailed it on that.
I feel
you totally nailed it on that one, mate, Paddy?
Yeah. And it was a wider point. It was Trump / the far right. And so if you take the wider context in terms of the rise of the far right, and again, we're not opining on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we're just saying it's pretty clear now far-right parties are on the rise all the way across Europe and including the UK. There was an election tomorrow. It's pretty clear from the polling Nigel Farage would win it by a fucking landslide.
Yeah. And if you just extrapolate the word Trump out to extended family members, his children and all that stuff, between their Bitcoin ventures, crypto ventures, and new hotels getting thrown up and all across the Middle East, the entire Trump family is crushing, or as Charlie Sheen would say, winning.
And Stephen, your losers?
The losers, I think I talked about...
It was Rachel Reeves.
Rachel Reeves. And I think, again...
God, he nailed that one.
It's probably... and there will be other people with different views, but I think for most of the things that she came into power promising, and I think I said before, I'm not a traditional Labour supporter, but I was at the last election. I don't think she's delivered on anything that she promised. And... the last budget, in my own opinion, well, she gave lip service to some good ideas, the practical implications. We talked about power the other week. There was some nice words, but nothing to back it up.
Yeah.
So, and I think her popularity rating just goes to...
It's just unbelievably low,
Yeah.
historically low.
Yeah.
I think the whole government right now is just almost uniquely unpopular in a way that almost nobody's ever been. And so Rachel Reeves is a fine pick, and I feel really strong about that prediction. That's a good one. I predicted that the biggest winners, and again, I think it's probably a different way of saying what you said, Stephen, was the fiscal conservatives. So people who were of the right persuasion, who wanted to reel in budgets and deficits. The work of Doge continues, by the way. I don't think it goes reported these days. I think they're deliberately flying in stealth mode right now, but the work of Doge continues in the background, and it's never really stopped, and that continues. But fiscal conservatives, I thought, were the big winners. Don't know if I really got that right. The big, beautiful bill continues to expand.
I think
debt,
the
expand deficits. So
that's the other side of it. I think actually that is what kills fiscal conservatism in America. I think that's why we're seeing the inflation that we're seeing, amongst other reasons, tariffs notwithstanding.
So that was the kind of idea. And then the person was JD Vance. Again, I don't think I've really got that right as well. When I say JD Vance, if you go back and listen to that episode, it was a wild card on Trump having a heart attack and him ascending as the youngest president that there's ever been.
And I don't know, I think after...
stayed alive.
I think after coming out the gate pretty hot with Vance in terms of, you know, he's dressing down as Zelensky and his enforcer position on Trump, his star seems to be waning as the year progresses. You actually don't hear that much from him at all. He seems to be moving solidly into that slightly in the background role.
Which
is always what the vice president's supposed to be.
But it wasn't what he was doing at the start.
Yeah, and we kind of know that Trump doesn't like people that compete with him,
outshining him.
Yeah, pushed him out the limelight.
And then my losers were the woke left. I think it's hard to argue that it's been a good year for the woke left. It's been a terrible year. Yeah. It's largely a smashed ideology.
Catalyzed by Trump, by the way.
100%. I don't disagree with that at all. I think if you had somebody other than Trump, it would be fascinating to see where the trajectory was headed and what that would have looked like if continued for another 12 months.
Trump was the person that gave enterprise across America. Trump's rejection of the woke left gave permission for the CEOs across enterprise across America to say, no, we're not fucking having conversations about guys and girls' bathrooms and all that stuff. Get back to the office and so on and so forth. But he 100% catalyzed that movement.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Interesting, though, probably still not been crushed here. I mean, I think we definitely have a far more left of centre, our government. And we've, of course, seen the rise of Mandani, which, again, will be an interesting backlash to all that Trump. So that's a pendulum that I don't think stops swinging.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Paige. There's still some hope for you. My daughter and I do not agree on this at all.
Sam,
she is to
love
the
you,
left
believe
of
same
Greta
thing.
Thunberg.
Yeah. I think it's the children.
Well, riding on the back of one bad prediction, here's another one. I predicted that Elon Musk would be the biggest political winner of 2025.
And he might actually be the biggest political loser of
So
2025.
he started off as the right arm of Trump, and everything was going hunky-dunky. He had a $150 billion lift in his personal net worth. He's still only worth $500 billion, by the way, so we won't be putting the hat round for him anytime soon. But of course, as was widely predicted, that relationship fell apart in short order because you've got two alpha male gorillas that just don't work well with others and are used to having things their own way. And as was widely predicted, in short order, they started hurling shit across the gorilla cage at each other. Yeah. Started hurling feces at each other with the most gutter, vile abuse, accusing Trump of being in the Epstein docs and all that type of stuff. Trump threatening all sorts of retribution about why don't we just take his space company off him? That would be terrible. That'd be a shame if that had to happen, wouldn't it? And all the mafioso stuff. Now, ironically, they seem to be slowly working their way back to each other towards the end of the year. There's a much more kind of cordial relationship being formed again. But Elon took a dramatic personal hit, not just a personal hit, but across all these companies, where I think Tesla taking probably the brunt of that.
For sure.
There was a huge backlash against Tesla. Not just
Firebombing Teslas,
firebombing Teslas, boycotting the
dealerships,
boycotting the products, and in particular, the demand for them seems to be collapsing in Europe as well. So
remember, just for a moment there, it was completely normalised for people on the left to just walk down the street with a fucking pound coin and just scrape it down the side of a Tesla. You know, it was just.
You're making a political statement and all that crap.
We definitely got to a very weird moment there.
Yeah, I wonder. You talk about winners and losers. How do you define a winner and a loser? There's the other side of the coin, which says that Musk coming out of politics has probably been the best thing for him and most of his companies. Sure. And I probably think you could argue he's a winner because he's refocused on the things that are important.
Yeah.
We like Elon best when he's in the fucking boiler room, in the war room, building models, building the next version of the electric car tech, building the next rocket engine. That's the best of Elon Musk. It turns out he's a pretty lousy politician.
But was he the biggest political winner? Absolutely no way, no how. So totally flunked on that one. But redeemed myself with, again, a very predictable prediction that Starmer would be the biggest political loser. And I think directionally I've got that spot on. Just Starmer, and he's providing all the air cover for Reeves, as well as all that kind of sleazy stuff, people buying his glasses.
People don't
taking
know,
them
Andy actually does an amazing Keir Starmer prediction. Andy does a brilliant Keir Starmer voice.
So I think Starmer was probably directionally a huge loser politically. He's cloud cover for Reeves. A lot of the sleaze in terms of
Dead man walking.
Yeah, I think, again, not to go off on a tangent, there's, A, big majority, B, lots of other things, but the thing that worries me most is if he was to go, what would come next?
Politically dead, but nobody to...
Let's keep him there till
nobody
Farage.
To follow up.
Yeah, because ultimately, I think anything after Starmer goes way more left and way more problematic.
You're going to get Wes Streeting or Fleeting or whatever his name is, or Andy Burnham.
Yeah.
Why would that be any better than what we've got right now? Yeah.
So there you go, lads. That was our predictions for 2025.
Wrong.
I think...
One more to go.
Have we got one more?
Yeah. One more.
What have we got? Oh, dominant LLM.
So we finished off by talking what we thought the dominant LLM at the time would be at the end of 25. Now, cast your mind back. Mm-hmm. Back in January, ChatGPT was the only game in town. They were, from a market share perspective, 20x everybody else put together. Then you had these small businesses like Claude and then emerging capabilities from guys like Google. So through that lens, we all predicted the same outcome. I'd say we did okay on the prediction. We didn't do great, but we did okay. So we all predicted that the dominant LLM by the end of the year would be Gemini /Grok.
Yeah.
Now, I think what we did really well there is we predict, and it was hard to predict at the time because in January, Google had 30 million monthly active users on Gemini. Today, they've got 650 million.
Yeah.
We could never have seen that level of explosive growth at the start of the year. And so I think we were prescient on that. I think that was our ability to see the future and see where this was all heading. The part of it that doesn't really work was the Grok stuff.
Yeah.
Now,
because we've confused benchmarks with uptake.
But dominant could be expressed in many different ways, because what we're asking is what would be the dominant LLM? Well, that's a very nuanced question, because if you ask me what's the dominant code generation model in the world, it's 100% Claude from Anthropic.
Yeah. But you'd also argue that ChatGPT still has more active users.
It does, but the trend is reversed.
110%.
Okay? So I've got some data to ground us in this conversation. So ChatGPT, what?
Okay.
Let me
Put your
Control
teeth
Alt
in.
Delete. So ChatGPT today has something like 800 million monthly active users. Gemini grew from 30 million users to 650 million monthly active users in that same period of time. So ChatGPT in terms of user count still leads, but all the momentum is with Gemini, and it's narrowed the gap from 500 million users to 200 million users in the course of the year. So you can see that shift in momentum. In terms of the trend line, ChatGPT declined from 87% market share to 75% market share over the course of the year, and Google shot up significantly. So from August to November, Gemini grew 5x faster than ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So if we just go out 2 or 3 months, they're going to be at parity with ChatGPT and maybe even pass ChatGPT in terms of market share. Yeah. We were able to predict that trend line back in Gemini, and it was not obvious at all that was going to happen. Don't forget, we were all writing eulogies for Google in the April-May timeframe.
Particularly when they did the Black George Washington and all that kind of stuff, run about that.
But it's been an amazing comeback, and honestly, you've got to get to that guy, Sergey Brin, to come back, the founder to come
Take
back.
the reins.
Move all the bureaucracy out the way, that founder fucking energy, founder authority, and just go, right, this is an existential threat to the business. Assemble the war room, get me the best fucking people we have.
But we did say it.
And he moved all the bollocks out the way, all the bureaucracy and bullshit out the way, and now they're fucking crushing it. Gemini 3 is a phenomenal model.
And it's going to be interesting because obviously we had the Google Code Red.
Yeah.
And we're now seeing the ChatGPT Code Red.
Red.
And it'll be really an interesting, it's like managers of football teams. Like, is this going to be the moment where we see whether or not...
and one of the things that made us confident about that Gemini prediction at the time when it wasn't obvious is that we did acknowledge that Google were the OGs of this game between Dennis Asabi
invented the transformer technology that all this stuff
DeepMind
sits on.
and
we pointed out in January that TPUs were an unbelievable fucking advantage.
Yeah.
They have their own hardware. They're not dependent on the NVIDIA tech stack, creating a 50 to 75% margin for Jensen. And they can scale this stuff. I think they got 5 million TPUs on order for next year.
And they've got
5 million.
And they've got data sets which no one else has.
Moats.
And they've got users. It's like all these companies, again, one of the benefits of ages. I remember Apple when it first started, like literally when it first started. I remember Apple when it collapsed and no one bothered. But yet the quality of the company, Microsoft the same, grew, fell, grew. Google is so inherently large with so many spinning tops, quantum computing, fusion. There's just too much for them to fail.
Yeah.
So we know they've got the best model currently, and we know they've got the momentum and the traction. Let's talk about what led us to that prediction as Grok as a tight second.
Well,
So let's think about where Grok was in January last year.
So Elon was the first guy to coherently wire up 100,000 H100s, and that gave him a training advantage.
But giving everybody else a 2-year head start, by the way.
Yeah. So Grok's done a phenomenal job. If you look at the intelligence index, so there's a company called Artificial Analysis that do an intelligence index for these models. Grok's like the number 1, 2, 3 on every fucking benchmark, right? Acing all the benchmarks. It's not converted yet into significant market
Wide
share
range
capture.
adoption, yeah.
Now, neither has Anthropic, because Anthropic Claude serves a niche in software
Enterprise,
development.
yeah.
I was going to ask the question because ultimately, if you think about Grok is the brains behind self-driving. It'll be the brains behind X. So therefore, he doesn't
the Tesla
need
robot.
Yeah, he doesn't need to. And X probably doesn't have the spread that it once had.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the current user numbers are, but I think it's become much more niche than it was.
No, it's up.
No, it's up.
Is it right?
It's up
Okay.
massively.
650 million
Okay.
monthly active users. Yeah.
No, X is a massive community and growing. So your point is 100% accurate. Grok will be the AI that powers the X platform and increasingly the algorithm that powers your feed. Imagine 5-10 million Teslas on the road down the line. It'll be the voice agent inside every Tesla. Imagine 1 billion fucking Optimus robots in the field in 10 years' time. It'll be the AI agent that powers. So Elon can create industries to apply the Grok technology to.
Just remember when the robot's coming at you with its knife, it will be Grok.
I do also believe that it'll actually get decent market share on these back end these kind of open router type services that are serving tokens.
It's a sensational model.
Sensational.
It's extremely smart. It's the only one plugged into the real-time fire hose of the X data set, so it's great for real-time data. And that's why I think this question is actually poorly worded.
Because dominant means so many different things.
Dominant means so many things, right? If you ask the software development community what the dominant LLM is, it's Claude in Opus 4.5. If you ask the creators in the world what the dominant LLM is, it's Gemini and its multimodal capabilities and Nano Banana and slide creation. If you asked people doing research what the dominant model is, I would say Perplexity. Still my go-to daily driver, ride or die AI tool. Cannot live without it. So dominant means so many different things depending on the field that you are talking about.
Yeah.
But ChatGPT has become the verb.
Yeah.
It's got the mind share, and your granny knows what ChatGPT is in a way that she doesn't know what Claude is.
And I think it's a thing we've said many times over the last few months. There will not be one dominant model. We're moving into a world where there's going to be 4 or 5 incredibly good models, and we're just going to flip between them depending on what we want to do.
The leapfrogging cadence will come down from months to weeks to, in the end, days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that start to happen in November and December. There was a 2-week period where the best model in the world changed hands like 4 times in 2 weeks.
In a fortnight, yeah.
We won't talk too much about 26 because I think there's a show about that. But once you get into this loop of recursive self-improvement, then things get fucking wacky. So, but what I want us to do is just finish. We'll all finish with a final minute or two of thoughts here about looking back across the year.
Yeah.
Not talking about any specific thing, but in general, the progress that we've seen. In general terms, how would you describe it?
Well, here's what I want to say first. I think what we've demonstrated with this recap on our 2025 predictions, that our instincts on these things are very good. We've done really well, particularly with the business and tech predictions, maybe a bit more spotty with the kind of political stuff or the stuff that has a political element. But I think one of the things that we've demonstrated is we've got great instincts for where all this stuff is headed. So stay tuned to the Roundtable Rethink podcast.
As we continue to glaze ourselves.
As we continue to self-aggrandize.
On the political stuff, speak for yourself, Andy.
Exactly.
I think looking back on it, the expression that comes to mind is it's a boil the frog year. I think it's been like, look at if we jump from January the 1st to now, the water's boiling. I mean, it's an incredible leap forward. But because the changes come slowly, weekly, monthly, and you get used to each one along the time, I don't think most people have got any sense of how far we've come in that 12 months. So a lot of it seems so obvious now, but actually it's been boiling the frog. The temperature's going up, and it's just going to go up quicker and faster.
That's a good point. I'm going to make a similar point. I might say it slightly differently. I think it's amazing what we've got used to. This stuff 18 months ago. What we've got today, we're now awash in unbelievably capable models. There's nobody building bad models now. All the main frontier labs are single-digit percentage points away from each other in capability. We're awash with great models that actually now work consistently and run when you need them to run, and this speed per token is increasing, so we're kind of getting faster and better as the whole years went by. And we've not actually, it's all happened so quickly and in so many increments, we've never stopped to actually appreciate the progress. It's been a stunning, mind-blowing year of progress, but it seems too normal because we, in your analogy, boiled the frog. We just got used to the temperature rising, and our new baseline became 140 degrees centigrade.
Yeah, we are inside. Turning into cooked chicken. No, I would agree broadly with that. I think Gemini
AI went from being a power user tool and a niche tool and niche understanding to mainstream in 2025.
Gemini 3.0 Pro in January would literally seem like science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. But would people please stop complaining all the time? You know, I'm a great believer, and we've talked this before. Happiness is the tangent between expectation and reality.
Yeah.
And people got these strange ideas about AI should be, or what it does and doesn't do. And if we just stop reading the press and actually look at what it does do, that hallucinations are now minimal.
Yeah.
That models can be fine-tuned for specific tasks. And, we've talked about this before, universities, schools, work, all saying you can't use it, you don't use it. Give it up. It's a calculator.
Yeah.
But Stephen, in January, the most common question I got was, what is AI?
Yeah.
Nobody even knew what it was. It's out there in the zeitgeist now. Everybody has some idea of what AI is and is able to tie it back to some kind of concept. That was the most common question I got in January. AI, what is AI?
So maybe we don't meet next week because Stephen's away, but maybe if we get the following week under our belts, then it would be interesting to finish the year with our predictions for 26.
Yeah.
So we've done the look back, we've done the scorecard. The next show will be a prediction show for 26.
Oh, do you know what we need to decide? So what did we say at the start of the year? We said we're going to run this show for a year.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the end of the year and see if we're going to keep it going. We promised ourselves we'd get to the end of the year. We've got to the end of the year. It's been a bit spotty all the way through. I think we're on episode 30. Are we going to keep it going into 2026?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think what's actually, and for everyone, I make my apologies for the weeks I can't make it, but what's become nice is there's a pace and an ebb to it, like doing it when we feel like doing it. And I know that's not always great if you're listening, and thank you to, and can be a big thank you to the people that have been sending us, I think this week, where we showed up on the Spotify list. So for one guy, David, thank you. We were his number one listen.
Yeah.
I think for Dan or someone, we were like in his top 5, 4 or 5.
That was so cool to see. What does Spotify call that? Is it their recap or? So everybody who's listening will be able to relate to this. At the end of the year, Spotify auto-generate a recap for you, and it tells you your most listened to artists and your most listened to podcast. People have very kindly emailed us and texted us and sent in messages showing us that I think on one you sent through, it was like Joe Rogan, the Roundtable Rethink podcast and somebody else.
Yeah.
And that was just
lovely,
kind of amazing to see. So
that might have been Alex, actually. Yeah, might have been Alex. Thank you.
It's been very satisfying doing it. No, I'd say it's definitely work. It's not just a hang. There's work to it.
Oh,
and some weeks it feels like work, and other weeks it just feels like fun. But all in all, I'm so glad we did it. There's 30 hours of our voices out there in the airwaves.
More like 40. Yeah.
What a great wee legacy for our ungrateful children to listen to in the future when we're all fucking dead.
And on that note,
all right, so there you go, episode 30 in the can. All we've discovered this week is if you want to know what's going to happen in the next 12 months' time,
tune in.
You listen to the Roundtable Rethink podcast. Woo!
And remember, if you do, the only thanks we ever ask is remember to give it a like, share, and write a review.
And we need to front load the beg. We need to front load the beg into the beginning of the episode. I think that's actually going to be the way to do it.
Do the Stephen Bartlett thing. It always amazes me that 87% of people that listen to the podcast aren't subscribed.
Don't actually subscribe. Yeah.
All right, there you go, folks. Episode 30 in the can. Bye.
See you soon. Bye bye,
everyone.
everyone.